how are you? I hope you're well. It's very, very hot today. It's very hot yesterday. So please make sure that you are well hydrated. You have a bottle of water next to you and that you keep drinking it because it is very, very hot today. So welcome to lesson 2 of the week. Just carrying on from the learning from yesterday. Thank you so much for the work you've been emailing me in. You guys have made a great start to our new topic. I can't wait to see the work you're going to send in today. Let me minimize my face. There we go. There I am in the corner. Today's date is the 23rd of June 2020, and our LI is to measure capacity in litres and millilitres. And you'll need a pencil, a ruler, and a piece of paper to get started. Okay, so here's our number talk. Which will add more to the jug, a quarter of a litre or half a litre, and how do you know? So pause the video and answer the question. Now, the answer is half a litre because there are more millilitres in half a litre than a quarter of a litre. In a quarter of a litre, there are only 250 millilitres, but in half a litre, there are 500 millilitres. So 500 millilitres is more than 250 millilitres. Therefore, that half a litre will add more to that bottle. Got that right? Good job. And if you're able to work out the equivalent measurements, even better. So here's our key vocabulary: capacity, volume, intervals, litres, millilitres, and measure. You were introduced to these words yesterday, so they should be familiar to you. And if you're still not quite sure what some of them mean or how to use them, don't worry. We're looking at them in more detail today, and also we will be using them for the rest of the week. Right, so before we begin, we'll be learning about capacity and volume this week, as you already know. So in your books, write down what is capacity and what is volume. So capacity is the maximum amount that a container can hold. That's the capacity of a container or a jug. The volume is the actual amount of water that's actually in there. So often the capacity is a larger number than the actual volume, but as we remember from our dying dog question yesterday, the capacity and the volume can also be the same if that container is filled up to the maximum amount. Excellent. So when measuring liquids, we use litres and millilitres. And so before we begin, I did tell you the answer to this question at the beginning of the video. How many millilitres are there in litres? How many millilitres are there in litres? And hopefully you would have written down, there are 1,000 millilitres in 1 litre. Good job for those of you who remembered that from yesterday. So let's start by practicing reading some scales. So what I want you to do is I have 3 arrows here pointing at 3 different measurements. What's behind these stars? What are these? What do these arrows represent? What measurement? Pause the video, have a go. So this one is pointing at 200 millilitres. This arrow here is pointing at 500 millilitres. And this arrow here is pointing at 900 millilitres. So good job for getting that right. Now let's try this one. So look at the arrows very carefully and tell me, what are those arrows pointing at? Which measurement? The first one is halfway between 200 and 300, and therefore the measurement is 250 millilitres. This one is pointing at 500 millilitres again. And this arrow is pointing halfway between 700 and 800 millilitres, which means it must be 750 millilitres. So good job for those of you who got that right. Let's carry on and practice some more. So look carefully at these arrows. These are a bit trickier. So look really carefully and tell me, estimate what the measurements, what the arrows are pointing, which measurement the arrows are pointing at. This one here is 50 millilitres, because it's halfway between 0 and 100. This arrow here is 575 millilitres because, if you notice, halfway would probably be a bit lower than where this arrow is, and it's a bit higher. It's actually 3/4 of the way up. So the measurement here is 575 millilitres. And look at this one here. This arrow is not quite up to halfway. It's lower than that. So what do the measurement here is? And the measurement here is 825 millilitres. So that would be a good guess. If you got those right, good job. You're doing very well. If not, don't worry, we're practicing some more. And here we go. So look closely at the measuring jugs, not on your tables. Let's look closely at this jug over here, okay? Now, 0 to 150 millilitres. What is the measurement that is here? Look carefully. So we have to work out first what each interval represents. So how many intervals are between 0 and 50? There are, let's look at, it says here, number of intervals between 0 and 150. So there are 5, 10, 15 intervals from 0 to 150. Okay, so there are 50, you write this down. There are 15 intervals. The maximum capacity is 150 millilitres. To work out what one interval represents, we have to divide 150 by 15, which is 10. So each interval is worth 10 millilitres. Let's work out how much liquid there is in there. So we know this is 50, add 10, 60, add 10, 70. This jug has 70 millilitres of liquid on it. Okay, let's move on. So Daniel Dog says that all the increments on a scale do need to be labelled. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Daniel, if I take this, if I can take this jug with me, I can explain what he's trying to say. Oh no, so I didn't mean that. This jug, we're going to use an example. So what Danny is saying is, for example, on this jug, only the increments here, here, and here are labelled. What Danny is saying is that all of the little increments need to be labelled. Do you agree with Danny, or do you disagree with Danny, and give a reason for your answer? Now, Danny is not having a great week because Danny is wrong, because there's no need for us to label each increment, because if we just know that between 0 and 50 there are 5 equal increments, we can work out what each increment represents. We don't need to write down 0, 50, 100, 150, sorry, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. We don't need to write that down, because using our mathematical skills we can work it out. So in this instance, Danny is wrong, and well done if you got that right. So the time has come for you to complete your tasks. Please don't forget to take a picture of your work and email it to me at year3@grange.harrow.sch.uk. And you'll find your work in the usual place on the Grange website under online learning, year 3, and then there'll be maths task 2306-2020. And when you go in there, you'll come up with this task here. So task 1 is for you to measure the amount of water in each jug. So it will require you to work out intervals and their value, and it's just building upon the work which you did yesterday. And then task 2 is a slightly more challenging version of task 1, and it's requiring you to measure the liquid in those jugs. Now, there are only 2 tasks today because I think we really need to get our head around and be secure with being able to read measurements of volume and capacity. So going back to our smartboard, fancy a challenge? Here it is. So challenge, true or false, 1/4 of a litre is equal to 0.25 millilitres, half a litre is equal to 500 millilitres, and 1 1/4 litres is equal to 1,250 millilitres. Which of those statements are true and which of those statements are false? And that's it. So I hope you have fun completing your tasks. I can't wait to see your work, and I will I think speak to you first thing tomorrow with a briefing video, and then I'll see you tomorrow for more maths. Take care. Bye.